What's going on, guys? I'm the Tengwar teacher. Tonight we're going to be learning Middle Earth languages. We're going to be starting with primitive Elvish. So make sure you go get a pen and a pad and join me back here in a few moments. See you soon. What's going on, everybody? How's it going? I am the Tengwar teacher, and it's very nice to see you this evening on this broadcast. We're going to be talking about Middle Earth languages, primarily primitive Elvish. So before we get started, let's go check out and see who's in the chat. What's up, BKaz? Welcome to the broadcast. How's it going? So if you're just seeing this, I would like to invite anybody that missed the first part. Maybe if you're joining a little late, it will be available for stream later. Also, we'll be pushing this to the YouTube, so just make sure you go check it out. But it's nice to see you. What's up, BKaz? Thank you for joining us this evening. We're gonna go ahead and get started in a few moments. And so, how's everybody doing? Doing good? Having a good day? I'll be going and getting my stuff set up, and we'll get started here in a moment. I've been practicing this. Let's see if I can do it. Yep. All right. Let's see. Let me get my handset situated. All right. Here we go. There we go. Bring out the old trusty iPad. All right. Yeah. Awesome. Yep. I can't wait to. I've had so much exciting energy about this for several days now because most of what I do is writing people's names. I make tattoo designs and things like that. I do a lot of that. But I rarely get an opportunity to teach. And I am the Tengwar teacher, so I really want to spend more time doing this kind of stuff. So I thought this would be a good platform to try to do this on because it's got really good user interface. I can set up everything exactly the way I want it, and get things going so that people can learn. So more people may join in. Feel free to talk to me in the chat if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and get what we're going to be learning tonight, and we'll get started. So let me bring that up. So every Wednesday night, we're going to be learning a new section of this list here. So the very first thing we'll start with is primitive Elvish, and then the next thing we'll be doing is ancient Quenya, and up under that section there will be Quenya, Vanyarin, ancient Telerin, Old Sindarin, Sindarin, North Sindarin, Nandoran, and Abarin. So tonight we're just going to be looking at primitive Elvish. But let me go ahead and show you, just so you'll get a little bit of a taste. So in case this is your first video you're watching of the series, every Wednesday night I'll be breaking into one of these sections. And then after we finish through this, we're actually going to go into the second part, which is the Mannish language section, where we'll actually look at the Adane, the primitive Adunaic, and Westron, Rohirric, Wos, it's a little bit small on my screen, Underling, Easterling. So, and then even after that, once we go through those, I'm planning on doing some show episodes with these, where we actually look at Kuzdul, some Black Speech, Valaria, Intish. So believe it or not, all these things exist and are in the in a wiki or in a database somewhere, and there's examples of things we can pull and look at. So to do so, we'll be using things like the Tengwar, obviously, Kirth when we get to the Kuzdul section, and Sarati when we talk a little bit about that. But we're not going to be doing a whole lot of that, but it's on the list, so we might take a look at it. Yeah. There's very little examples of black speech, but the things that we can look at, we will take a look at. So, all right, guys, let's get started. Let me go ahead and turn this off, and we'll start with primitive Elvish. So this session is going to be more like a teaching. We will do other sessions where we just do writing and things like that, but this is going to be more of a, I've prepared a set list of things that I want to share with you, and then that's about it. So let's get started. Let me bring up the first slide here. So the first thing I want to mention is that J.R.R. Tolkien, he was first most a lover of languages. He designed the languages that we use in real life, not in Middle Earth, but in real life. He initially started with his love for the Finnish language. He particularly loved their grammar, their morphology, their inflections, and over time he created a language that was sort of based off of the Finnish language, and that's what turned into Quenya. So when we talk about Quenya language, the origins came from the Finnish language. Now, most of us are more familiar with probably the Sindarin because of Neo-Sindarin, and that's probably what's more spoken by most people that learn Elvish. That actually came from his interest in the Welsh language. He was fascinated by the phonology inside the Welsh language, and that's what eventually turned into Sindarin. So it's just an interesting point I wanted to make before we go into primitive Elvish, because when you start to do a deep dive into something like this, into a conlang or a fictional language, there's going to be things that may stand out to some of you that are watching this that's familiar with either of these languages. And if you see any similarities, well, you know why now. That's exactly why. So, all right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the very beginning. We go all the way back to when the elves were created, the very first awakening, if you will. When the elves woke up, they woke up at a specific spot at a place called Lake Kuivi-Inen. Kuivi-Inen. Lake Kuivi-Inen. Literally means a place of awakening. All the elves, they all spoke one language. There were no variations in the Elvish language initially. When they first awoke, they all spoke one language. There was no written form of it yet. So, when we talk about primitive Elvish, we're going to talk about a couple of examples. What I will do each week when we talk about a subject, I will talk just for a moment about the topic, like primitive Elvish, and then we'll talk about some examples. We'll give examples. So one that's probably very familiar to most readers and like people that have taken any interest in Middle Earth at all would be the example of the two trees, correct? So in primitive Elvish, the word for two trees is Galada Ata. Okay? The earliest form that we have is Galad, and that is actually where Galadriel's name comes from. Now, most of you are probably thinking, but I thought her name meant something else. We're getting to that. So let's keep going. I want to show you something. So when Galadriel came to Lorien to become sort of like their queen or ruler, or whatever you want to call it, the Sylvan elves, the wood elves, they are the ones that gave her this name, Galadriel. And the reason why they did that is because it meant like Lady of the Wood or Tree Lady. And initially when J.R.R. Tolkien made her name, he actually made it off of the word that meant tree, which was Galad in primitive Elvish. And that's why she was the Tree Lady. Now in 1955, as her role escalated up in the Legendarium, she took on a new meaning, and he gave her the meaning of Blessed bliss or like radiant light, right? This is the things that most people are more familiar with. But I wanted to share that because in the primitive Elvish section, you would actually notice that her name actually means tree lady, which is pretty interesting to me. And a lot of people may not know that. So I wanted to point that out. All right, before we go to the next example, I wanted to write some of these out. So that's another part of what we'll do. Let me hide this real quick. There we go. All right, so we're going to write out the words that we just had up there. So initially, like I said, there was no writing system in primitive Elvish, but that doesn't mean that we still can't derive what it would be like later on. So it went directly from primitive Elvish into Sindarin because the Sylvan elves gave her this name. So that's important to note. That's why when we write it in Sindarin, let me make sure this is working. Let's see. So here's a G. And then we're going to do our A, L, A, and then we'll do the symbol for DH. So that is Galad, right? And that means tree. So this is the origin of Galadriel's name. Okay? Yeah. Thank you, Dancer and BCAS. Thank you guys for joining so much, and I appreciate you responding in the chat because I love getting feedback from you guys. So if you have any questions as I'm going through any of this, we're going to try to keep this informal, but I'm trying to just go through, what I can. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this. So again, this is Galad, and this literally means tree, and this is the source for Galadriel's name. So over time, you can imagine Galadriel, it changed. So we're going to write that out real quick. This is the G. This is in Sindarin. That's the A, the L, the A, the D, R, I, E, and one last L. Sneak that in there. There we go. All right, so that's Galadriel. And this is the way that her name would have been written during her time of ruling from the beginning of being with the Sylvan elves. So, all right, so that's one example of primitive Elvish and its origin and how it had changed over time, but we can also understand how it looks from the beginning through current. So now let's go and do another example. Let me clear this off. So another example we have before us, you'll be very familiar with once we get to it. So in primitive Elvish, the word for leaf is lasse. Lasse. This is the earliest form from the origin for the name Legolas, right? This is pretty. It's funny, but it's true. So when you look at the earliest form of lasse over time, it evolved. His initially actually came from Quenya, because his is way back. So his would be even more primitive as far as the origin in its earliest usage, but it was lasse, and then over time it became, see, I have some notes here. It became lasse to las in Sindarin, and then once you start combining his name and the Legolas, which meant green foliage, to eventually Legolas, which means green leaf. And we joke about this. Yeah, we joke around about it. That's what I'm trying to say on my channel. But Legolas literally means green leaf, and so when they call him Legolas Greenleaf, they're literally saying Greenleaf, Greenleaf, because his name in Elvish means green leaf, which is hilarious. But so that's the origin of his name. So that's how it went from just the primitive Elvish word for leaf to later the Sindarin usage. Yeah, the Sindarin usage to green foliage, and then it eventually became green leaf, and his name is Legolas. All right, so let me clear this off, and then we'll write these out. So, like I said initially, in Quenya, the word for leaf is lasse, and it looks like this. Now this is Quenya, so it's going to be reversed order of what most of you are used to. So we have the L, and then above that we have the A, right? Now, in Quenya, to do a double S, you just make sort of, it almost looks like a 3, like that. And that's actually representative of 2 S's. And then to make an accented E, you kind of do kind of a long stroke like that. So this is the word for leaf in Quenya. And this is probably what it would have been in primitive Elvish, okay? So again, over time, that changed. In Sindarin, we would have it be las, and it would look like this. There's the L, there's the A, and then we would do 2 silmes like this. And that's how it would look in Sindarin over time, once the languages started converting, right? And then obviously we know Legolas as a character. It also means greenleaf, so we'll write that out. Let me clear this page. Layer. All right, so Legolas would be, there's our L, and we're going to do the E symbol, looks like that. A G, looks like this in Sindarin. We're going to do an O, an L. Hope I have enough room here. An A, and a silme to end it, make S. I barely had enough room. We made it though. So, awesome. Yep. So that is Legolas in Sindarin, and it means greenleaf. So, welcome, Mr. Greenleaf, Greenleaf. Legolas, Legolas. Yeah. I think we even made a t-shirt that said that at one time. I know I've got some people that have bought that, so it's a running joke on my channel. So, but anyway, yeah, we like to pick at Legolas because of his name. All right. So there's a couple of things that I want to point out. Yes. There's a few things I want to point out that I made mention of in my notes here. A fun fact about primitive Elvish is that the original language was forgotten. Right? So we have no written record of it. There were no characters, right? So all of it was forgotten. So you may be asking, well, how do you know what these words are? Because some of it can be reconstructed by comparing the Elvish languages that developed later from it. So because we know what the words are, like you just saw, we actually went with 2 name examples and went with the Quenya and to Sindarin, and then we talked about that and how it pretty much gives us a clue into what the primitive Elvish word would have been. There's 2 branches of primitive Elvish. There's the primitive Quendarin. There's the common Eldarin. The common Eldarin was spoken by Eldar as they marched to Aman. So, again, this is just a spoken language, but I wanted to give you a couple of examples. I wanted to give you sort of an example of how you could see the modern languages that evolved, that Tolkien evolved into, and then kind of how you can go backwards and see some of these things. Now, that was just 2 words, but there's a whole database out there that you can go and reference these things at. and that's something that if you're interested in, you can go see more. I'll put the link to that page in the description on this video if you don't mind. All right, so let me pull back up that list real quick. Make sure I've got this stuff. All right, so we just did primitive Elvish. Next week, when we come together for this teaching, we will begin into ancient Quenya, and we'll be looking at more words and examples in the ancient Quenya. And up under that section, we'll look at Quenya and some examples of Vanyarin. Yes. So, do you guys have any questions? All right, let me read. First of all, if you just joined, make sure you go back and start at the beginning, because the first probably 20 minutes of the broadcast is going to be spent with the teaching part. As we progress along, we'll do some Q&A, discussion, hanging out, and then eventually we may do some more requests. Like if you have a name request or a phrase or something, we can do that. But let me check out the chat real quick. We have some questions. Let's see. Yes. So the question is when you're practicing the Tengwar, specifically probably that I'm teaching mostly on my channel, and the Feanorian letters and things like that. That's how the script would look in the Third Age in the common tongue, like Western. So that's pretty much an accurate statement, because Tolkien, even though in the appendices he said that there is no real English mode, he even says that point blank in the appendices, but he did give us many attested examples of the English that he had written. He gave us all the examples he put into the intros in the books, and he even made a little note that said that this would probably be the way a Westron man would write, like in the common tongue, like you're talking about. So what could be done with that is, based off of all the things that he attested and used in his writings, we could glean that and build rules from. There's a lot of things that have developed over time from that, but also we can look at the other usages, the different modes that he did give us, like in Sindarin, Quenya, Black Speech, and we can sort of derive at what would be the usage for English, for instance. But usually the name of it is usually like the original mode or common mode, so, or even full mode. Some people say it that way. But so guys, I want to make sure that, if you have any questions or anything I can do, if you have a request, be thinking of one, maybe a name request. I could do that in the next few minutes, and we'll try to keep this broadcast sort of based generally around the teaching points, and then maybe a couple of things at the end. So if anybody wants to stick around and learn something, they can. Let me make sure I'm hiding this. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. All right. So if this is your first time watching this, I am the Tengwar teacher, but I do have an English name. It's Jamie. So I usually like to show people that. So we'll start with that one. This is in English mode. This is the Tengwar for J, and then we'll do an M with an A vowel on top. Then we'll do a short carrier with an I on top, and I usually end mine with a silent E because the I covers the E. So that's how you do my name. So if you have a request, feel free to drop it in the chat. And if you guys are just joining, go check out the first part of the stream later. I'm going to be posting this also up to my YouTube channel, so it'll be available up under a playlist there. So yes, thank you for the request. What's up, Brandis? Nice to have you. Glad you were able to join. Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll do a few more names tonight. So we're going to do Nicholas as requested. So we'll start off with the N, and then we're going to do the Tengwar that makes the K sound. So even though CH is in Nicholas, it does not make the ch sound. And this is sort of the rule of thumb in writing Tengwar, for me at least. I try to stick with the orthographic mode as much as possible, unless, and here's the exception, if there is a Tengwar that accommodates the need, then I use it over the orthographic. So instead of using a CH, I would use the Tengwar that makes the K sound. So that's why we put an N, the K, or like the K sound with an I. Then we're going to draw our L, like this, with an O on top. And now this is a little bit new. I don't use Silme Nakorna anymore. I'm trying to get to using it more like Tolkien would have. So we're going to use Silme and put our A on top like that. Just in case somebody's tuning in that has learned from me in the past, they might be thinking, well, I don't understand why you just did that. That's why. Tolkien really never used Silme Nakorna. He did a couple of times, but it was really only attested to be used for a soft C. Now, there's some more stuff that's coming out in a book called The Art of the Manuscript, and there's some interesting points in there we're going to be taking a look at once I get that information and knowledge. But I don't think it's going to rock our world too bad. But we're still kind of holding our breath to just see what's been released. There's always new things that's being released that would attest to new mode usages. So we always try to wait and see. All right, but that's how you do Nicholas. Thank you for that request. Yep, you're welcome. I'll take just a moment to mention some things I have coming up while we're waiting, in case somebody else has a request or something. We're going to continue to do this exact thing every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. We're going to have a recurring course, and we'll continue to do our Middle Earth language studies and go through that tree that I showed earlier. But what I'm really excited about is I'm about to redo a Elvish writing course. So you just asked because what would I recommend checking out after my Elvish writing course? To be honest, I would check out my new Elvish writing course that I'm about to release. It's coming out sometime this month because there's a lot of revisions I need to make in the old one. So I'm working on building out the new one. I'm really excited about that. It's actually a perfect segue into talking about that. But after you do my channels on YouTube, the course, then there's other resources out there like well, obviously my TikTok. If you don't know about my TikTok, I have a good following there. I also have a English learning guide there, and I have tons of examples, about 400 names in a playlist that's alphabetized. So that's somewhere you could start really dissecting the Tengwar usage if you have access to TikTok. It's up to you. But if you don't do that, there's other resources like some books I can recommend. I can try to put those in the description as well for these, because if I just tell you now, it may be a little bit confusing as to how to find it. So I can just drop some resources and maybe the description to help people if they're interested in finding something after they have gone through my material. So appreciate their question. So let me see. I'm going to ask if there's a difference. Yeah, let me show you that. Well, that's okay. Actually, there is a difference. I can show you using Nick. So for instance, if we did like just Nick, right? This would be Nick. And I deliberately left the CH off because that's not very common. Okay, but let's just say you wanted to do what you just asked, Nick, with a CK. There is a difference. You would do the N, still do the K symbol, the I, but you'd put a line right here because that makes the CK noise, noise, sound. I make a lot of noise, but there you go. But that would be a difference. Is this bar here would indicate the CK, whereas this just makes the K sound. So that is one difference. If you was to write Nicholas out with the CK, that would need to be added. So there you go. If you're wondering what am I using here, because yeah, about to say, if you're wondering like what I'm using, this is a iPad Pro, and I'm using the Apple Pencil, which you can see if you look at. Sorry, brought that back up. You can see up in the top right where I have my little webcam showing. Use Apple Pencil. The application that I'm using is Procreate. It's a great tool. The brush that I'm using, I actually created. It's called Tengwar lettering, and I have that for free on my Linktree. You can download that for free if you have this program. For font usage, if I'm doing something like I did, like my name here, Tengwar teacher here, wherever that is over here, there, yeah. Stuff like that. There's different fonts you can use. If you look up basically Tengwar Eldamo, let me see if I can write that. It looks like Tengwar Eldamo, I think, is the one that I'm using right here below me. And then there's Tengwar. Oops. There is Tengwar Anatar, named after Anatar. This is more the font that you would use or see on the One Ring, right? But I use it all the time because it's the one of the most iconic one that people would recognize, right? Especially for tattoo designs, that's primarily the one that people ask for or want. If you guys want a tattoo made up or a design, I do it as a commission. And the only reason I do that as a commission is I'm not like trying to make a lot of bank on doing these things. What it is if I have to sit down and make like, a design, I have to go to my office and do these things and work on my computer, get the workup made up. I try to do it professionally so that you can take it to a tattoo artist and say, here's my images. They can make a transfer image and you're ready to go. So I think that's worth a few dollars for me helping you set that up. So I usually ask for just a small commission. Yep, that's right. I believe in that. I believe that somebody that puts in a lot of effort into something should be rewarded somewhat. Yeah, I promise you, I'm not getting rich off of any of this. Most of everything I do, and always have done, I've been doing this, studying Tengwar for 18 years. So I've been doing this as a hobby, 100%. I have a full-time job, I have a family, and I have a way to make a means for my family, and this is not required. But anything that I can get as in the form of donations or commissions, I always put it back into things like buying my domain, paying for my server, for our Minecraft server. We have a Discord, so sometimes I put some money into that. Just and all the stuff I'm working with right now in front of me, cameras, I just bought an audio kit, to do all this. Yeah, it's really, I wanted to make it something that people could enjoy and not just be just fun, but actually be a really good professional made adventure, right? So anyway, yeah, any donations, if you guys want to throw me a few dollars here and there, it'll go right back into building this. So I appreciate you guys. Does anybody have a request? I know we had a couple of people drop in at the last moment here, and we're running at about 50 minutes. I wanted to try to keep our sessions to about an hour because that's, I feel like, a good good time length for each Wednesday night. So if anybody's got anything else, we can go ahead and do that. I'm gonna get me a little water. Alright, let me hide this. I love this effect. I've been working on this all day. Alright, get out of here. Oh. What? Did you write Middle Earth? Alright. Yeah, before I throw my iPad. Well, come back. Thanks. Oh man. I'm so cheesy. It doesn't take much to entertain me. Alright, so now Middle Earth is a English word. So let's write that. And we're going to use the, oops, using the wrong brush. We're going to write it like a Western man would do in using Elvish, right? Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that all day. I was like, this is like magical, right? All right, so Middle Earth. We're gonna start off with an M. And I love how the Tengwar M actually looks like an M. It's pretty easy to recognize. It's just when you start getting these other loops like this, and people's like, oh, I'm so lost. Right? Okay. But let's go ahead and keep going. We got our consonant D, and we've got an I. So to make two D's like this, we're going to put a bar up under, right? And we're going to do a consonant L. And then because the E at the end is silent, we're going to put a dot right in the middle like that. Yep, that's how you make a silent E on the end of a word with an L. Yep. So now let's do Earth. Now this is actually a really good teachable moment. Not a huge fan of the EA vowel combination called ase. And ase looks like this. Let me just show you. Ase looks like that. It's attested in the Endorian letters. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this today. The Michael Endorian letter that Tolkien wrote, and I might as well go ahead and put this out there because I've tried to explain it, and some people have asked me, what's your problem with ase? Why don't you use ase? Because I don't use it. But this is why. In the Michael Endorian example, if you want to pull it up sometime, he writes pretty much the same thing to Michael. On the top line, he writes it in Quenya. Not in Quenya language, but he writes something sort of like an English equivalent in Quenya. Then on the bottom, he uses the Sindarin usage to write the English. Now, this is the only place that I know of that this symbol is attested. Now, I personally believe that Tolkien himself was just taking a moment to show his friend in this little note just the examples that he could write, something he could read, which is English, using the Quenya and Sindarin. It was a moment he was showing off. That's all it is. I believe it. I don't think that he ever intended for that note to be a teachable moment for us to use in the English mode. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but sorry about that. That's the reason why I don't use it, because I believe it's a Sindarin usage and I don't use it in my English. With all that said, that was a long explanation, but let's go ahead and use it for the people that would use it, and then I'll turn around and show you how I do it. Okay? All right, so you got ase here, and then we're going to do an R like this. And Earth has a breathy TH, so we have TH. That's it. So EARTH. Now, the way that I would write it, because I don't particularly use that, and when I say I write it, this is also how Tolkien would write it too. Tolkien was attested for using these vowels like this, so he would actually also do this too. So we have an E, we have our R with an A on top, and then our TH like this. That's how I would write Earth, because I don't use ase, for the reason that I just said a few moments ago. So if you need to go back and rewind it, listen to it slowly, Some people just use it because they, a lot of people use it in the community. I'm not against it. I don't care if people use it. I don't agree with it being attested for English. That's my problem with it. And since Tolkien gave us an option to use without that in it, that's what I do. So cool. Yeah, but that's how I would write Middle Earth, and it was a good question because that was exactly a good teachable moment because a lot of people may not even think about that. I'm sure people that use that symbol, that one I was talking about, this is Ase, like that, they have never heard that. And if this is the first time you're hearing that, then go look into it for yourself and then just ask yourself, is this something that Tolkien intended for us to use in English? Maybe, maybe not. I'm just glad he gave us a couple of options here because I prefer the more traditional way. So, cool. All right. Well, we are here right at an hour. And let me just check the chat real quick. We're going to wrap up. Yep, that's right. And see, the only reason that I have some perspectives like this is because I've been doing this for since like 18 years ago, pretty much after the movies came out. That was when I sort of fell in love with the Elvish language and Tengwar and started just grasping at whatever website I could or using the appendices in the Return of the King book to try to learn. And over time, I started seeing the examples that Tolkien gave us that were attested, that he gave us. And then, a lot of things changed. When I did my initial YouTube videos, I didn't realize at the time that I was using some of the Christopher Tolkien usage. And that's something that I need to revise. That's it. That's one of the main reasons I'm going back and redoing my videos. I think my videos have helped a lot of people, but I think that they can be so much more and so much better. And I'm going to include a lot more stuff that's not in those. Like, I don't think I really addressed punctuation, numbers, digraphs, diphthong usage. None of that's in there really. I'm going to try to go back and do a lot more. So I think this new course that's coming out this month will be much more thorough, and I'm super excited about it. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, go follow me there because that's where the new video series will come out. If you're not following me currently, you're just hanging out watching this on Twitch, follow me because every Wednesday night we'll have stuff like this to talk about. So, and also on TikTok, I try to hang out there, do videos, I do names, I try to do what I can. I have the most followers there, so I try to communicate what I can with that user base. But I'm probably the most excited right now about what I'm about to do on YouTube. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. And I really look forward to seeing you guys next week. And I hope you have enjoyed this. And I guess I'm going to end the session. Yes, come visit us on Discord. If you look in the description on this video, you'll see I'm going to put resources. I'm going to put a link to my link tree, which has donation opportunities, which also has a link to our Discord and all my other social platforms, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and obviously Twitch. So thank you guys for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of your week. Be blessed.